what am I doing here? You've got me saying these wonderful lines, and they're all brilliant, but I don't know what I'm doing. Which is one of the horrors of working with actors. They find holes in the funniest places where you thought these were nifty speeches that you had made up. At any rate, I have even though I took all the best English courses at Yale and in creative writing as well, Robert Penn Warren was one of my teachers, and he read my work and would put question marks after it and say, "Point, boy, what's the point?" That was in my pointless days. I had wonderful daily themes teacher, Harry Berger. After my first week of daily themes at Yale, you had to write like a typewritten page every day, 5 days a week, for this thing. And it either broke you or made you interested in becoming a writer. And after 5 days of me, Harry Berger wrote, "When are you going to stop writing this soap opera crap?" Since then, Harry and I have had a few emails. He's retired, living in Italy, I think. And I said, "I'll have my accountant talk to you about when I stopped writing the soap opera crap." So I am presenting myself not as an artist. That would be foolish. I am a craftsman. I have learned an incredible amount of craft by having to work not only I've written novels and screenplays. One of the best training grounds for me in writing screenplays was I got a job turning screenplays into novels. Those were those 9 Kojak novelizations. I think I learned more about screenplays and novels in that process, because I had like 3 or 4 weeks to write these things. Taking a teleplay and turning it into a paperback novel. And then I was asked to take Scott Odell's novel, The Black Pearl, and turn it into a screenplay, which was made into a horrible movie that died. I learned an awful lot about the two things. So if you're just getting sort of bored and stale, try turning whatever you've just written, even if it's only a piece of it, into the other form, and see what happens. You may just start getting a whole new view. And I have a whole bunch of tricks like that. And because there are tricks. I think of writing as a craft. I think I'm a really good craftsman now. I don't hold Friday the 13th up as a brilliant piece of craft. That was very early in my career, but it certainly was a wonderful roller coaster ride for a lot of people. And it still, oddly enough, stands up. I did a screening last night that raised money for my grandson's day school. And I was surprised at the intellectual level and the educational level of the audience. There are all these people, these yuppies making lots of money, and they all came and they hooted and hollered and loved the movie. And going, what the hell is going on here? It's 29 years old. That was before all the graphic special effects now. So all of us, the stabbings and the pokings and the bleeding was all done in real time with rubber things poking out of Kevin Bacon. And by the way, you guys are all now 2 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, so you've gone up the food chain incredibly. Because I was there when they poked the hunting arrow through his little throat. And of course, last night's audience had a number of physicians in it and said, "You can't put an arrow up through someone's spine." And I said, "I know that." Try telling the audience that. At any rate, let me give you a couple of...
And with that, we'll start.
Yes, we'll start.
The workshop with Victor Miller.
Thank you, Walt.
Thank
I want to start by giving you some pieces of advice that were given to me. And, my God, they've been valuable. All right? I'll start in reverse order. I worked under the tutelage of Agnes Nixon, the queen of all soap opera. And you may not have much respect for soap opera, and certainly I didn't want to begin, but boy, she knows a lot about craft. This woman for years was William Morris's highest paid client of all. And that's up through the 80s and the 90s, because she had invented One Life to Live, she invented All My Children, all these shows, and was just, God has not seen as much money as Agnes Nixon has. But she also taught me a hell of a lot. And one of the things she said that stuck with me and has helped me, boy, more times than I can tell you, and not just in soap, but in all the other kinds of writing, is never stand on the periphery of your character and make comments. And I offer that as words to the wise, that your character cannot stand there and tell you about herself, and psychoanalyze herself in front of the audience. And I took a playwriting course from Herbert Berghoff, and he said, Victor, let the audience figure this out. Don't keep telling them what they're supposed to feel about a character. Don't keep commenting about these characters to the audience so that they'll know exactly how to think or feel about this guy or this woman. And so, but Agnes said the biggest sin in my show is if you have a character standing on the periphery of her own character, commenting on it, telling you what you should feel about it or how she feels about it. Agnes also would turn to me every once in a while and say, Victor, who are we rooting for? And boy, when I look at the cable television and the shows that really stink and the movies that I'd never even heard of, that didn't even get to my local neighborhood movie theater, who are you rooting for? I mean, you can come up with the greatest bunch of misfits in the universe, but if they're all ugly, if they're all horrible and you can't find anything valuable in any of them, so ask yourselves these questions. Come on in. We started early because I'm full of coffee. Who are we rooting for? And then the other thing was from Marty Kushner, this director friend of mine who got to me really early in my career, and we'd discuss my stuff, and I would tell him, and I would defend to the death everything that was in my script, and he would say, Victor, wait a minute, let me do it simply for you. He said, tell me what happens. And so I would tell him, and said, and he said, and then what happened? And then what happened? And I'd start to get philosophical. He'd say, no, don't get philosophical. And then what happened? And then what happened? And then what happens? Now, that's not to say that you have to write a movie in which everybody's punching everybody, because you can say, well, then he punches her, and then she punches him, and then he punches them, and then he runs away from. But and then if you start thinking in terms of, and then what happens, and then what happens, that's storytelling. Now, all of these comments you can throw right out the window, and that's fine by me, but I'm gonna speak from my standpoint in terms of craft, and it's always going to be, and then what happens, and then what happens. You can come up with all these other wonderful things, like how you want to change the world, or how you want people to think about women, or how you want people to think about men, or how you want people to think about cruelty. But you're going to have to do it by telling me something. And then what happens? And then what happens? And then what happens? Later, we can stand on the outside or the periphery of your screenplay and say, oh, I've learned a lot about animal cruelty, or I've learned a lot about how people interact, or I've learned a lot about, children, whatever it is. But it's going to have to be, and then what happens? My father was a commander in the Navy and had no imagination whatsoever, but he told us a story. After World War II, he came home, and we'd sit around, we were on a Navy base, and we'd sit on the back porch in Green Cove Springs, Florida, and you'd see this fleet out there with blinking lights, and they're signaling each other. And he'd start by just translating the Morse code going between the ships at anchor. And then he would tell us the latest installment of the Motorboat Boys. The Motorboat Boys, hard to say, but and it was always had a cliffhanger, and I think that's where my interest in writing may have started, because it was that thing, and then what happens? And then what happens to the Motorboat Boys? And then what happens? It was great. The other influence was, I think, that it has been said of writers, fiction writers, that we are liars. I remember my first memory, as I was saying earlier, is of telling my mother, I think I was 3.5, that